Hey there, pedal people. It's ThePedalGuy here. How you doing? Today what we're going to do is we're going to do a side-by-side comparison of the Lounsberry Nigel Studio pedal and the Lounsberry Amp Rescue pedal. But before we get started, please take a second and click on that subscribe button down there so you can stay up to date with all of our videos. Well, you might be wondering, why are we comparing a Lounsberry pedal against a Lounsberry pedal? Well, it's not so much as a comparison, more like an opportunity to differentiate between the two, because these pedals serve much different purposes. For example, the Nigel Studio is a touch overdrive, so it's used in place of an overdrive pedal that you'd find on just about any pedal board out there, because every pedal board needs an overdrive pedal one way or another, but it has a lot of character built into these two knobs and three FETs, as well as some germanium diodes. Now, on the right-hand side here is the Amp Rescue, and the Amp Rescue is meant more for people who have that first amp, or they have a solid-state amp, and they want to give it a tube-like characteristic. That's exactly what the Amp Rescue was built to do. And also, I might add, it really does work nicely with tube amps on top of that too, just to further enhance that sound and that tone and the characteristic. So it's really a pedal that serves a much more specific purpose. But they do, in each right, they both have their own character and identity, and they sound great. And we're going to go and do some audio examples between the two with our Strat here. But before we do that, let's take a second and just cover the features on each one of these pedals. The Nigel is a multi-gain staged FET preamp that works as a touch overdrive. In this pedal, there are two stages of gain enhancement before it hits the drive control, after which it's fed to the germanium clipping diodes, then to a third FET to simulate power tube response, after which it's sent to the output level. The Amp Rescue is also a multi-gain staged FET preamp, but in this case, a single FET is sent to the drive control, which then goes to the germanium clipping diodes, and is fed to two separate FETs to drive the gain staging, and then to simulate power tube response, after which it's sent to the level control. Okay, now that you've covered those features, let's go ahead and dig into it. So just to cover our bases here, let's just go over the setup we're using here. First and foremost, we're using a Strat. That is then going into the Amp Rescue, and from there it's going to the Nigel. From there it's going out to a Hot Tone Purple Wind amp, which is then routed out to an Axe Track isolation cabinet, and from there it's going back into our mixing console. And we also have some reverb on top of that to just add a little ambience on top of all of it. So without further ado, let's get a listen to what we've got here as our raw sounds. So let's start by bringing up the guitar. Okay, so what we're listening to right now, that's just the Hot Tone amp by itself. So let's turn that up a little bit by going to our first pedal here, which we're going to listen to, which is the Nigel. So we'll go ahead and turn that on, and we get something that sounds like this. And of course, let's mute the microphone too. So good solid sound, but now by comparison, let's go over to the Amp Rescue, which we're going to get an even different sound. Now, if you're not hearing the difference quite just yet, we're going to do a little A-Bing with riffs that are very, very similar to each other, and we'll layer them on top of each other in the video so you can really hear a difference. So I invite you to make sure that you put on a good pair of headphones or listen on a good pair of speakers so that you can get a really good idea of what this is going to sound like in your rig. Okay, so let's start with just some basic a basic blues progression with the bridge pickup, and we'll also move to the neck as well because again there's another tone to be had there. But let's start with the bridge pickup first. Well, listening to that example there, you can hear a lot that's going on when you listen to the three against each other. So the dry is, without the pedals is very bare bone basic. When we put the Nigel in, it's like an overall roundness, if you will. If I was going to use a word to describe that, I'd say round. And that may have something to do with the fact that you've basically got two gain stages before it hits the drive knob on the pedal. And with the amp rescue, it's a little more brittle, but at the same time, again, it's not meant to be like a round sounding overdrive. But it's got a great subtleness to it, especially with rhythms. But what we'll do at this point now is I'm going to keep the levels where they are for the moment. And we're just going to mess around with the drive knob. Now, if I take the drive knob below 12 o'clock and I start going down here, it's going to start getting a lot quieter than, say, the amp would without any pedal on it, without any pedal turned on at all. So I'm going to kind of keep it north of 12 o'clock, and we'll just start building up a sound just so you can hear the difference in the two pedals. So let's turn them up to 3 o'clock here on each side, and let's try a different riff. So let's put our guitar back here. All right, and let's kill the mic and let's get to it. So continuing along with these settings that we're using here, let's move to the neck pickup and let's just try a quick little blues riff there and see what that sounds like. here, when we went over to when we used the Nigel in this setting, in this configuration where we're at 2 and 3 on the knobs, it's almost an overwhelming overdrive, but it's responding nicely to the picking. It's very dynamic in style. And then when we got to the amp rescue, again, a little more overall, a little more brittle, probably a bit more full range in this regards. But you know, just to give you an example, turn that Nigel back on and just play another lick here. But yeah, listen to that, the picking sound there. Now I'll move over to the amp rescue. And notice it's got a little more control. It's not as extreme as it is with the Nigel. Again, because another way to think about this is the Nigel is meant to be that overwhelming overdrive sound, whereas the amp rescue is more to be like kind of a sweetener, if you will, to the sound. So you can actually use the two in conjunction with each other, although it does take a little bit of practice to get to that. So let's just continue on with one more riff here. We're going to turn everything up. We're going to turn up the drive to its maximum setting on both pedals here, and we'll try another riff and see what you think about that one. So let's bring up that guitar. Okay, and let's go to it. Okay, so if you're not hearing the difference by now, you're probably going to need to go back there and listen to it again, because again we're getting this overwhelming overdrive with the Nigel, just this crushing overdrive, and then with the Lounsberry, the amp rescue here, we're getting that nice even sound. But one thing to take note of, they both sound really good with full chords. So that's why I keep playing the full chords, because it's just that, you know, you get a great sound there. So, you know, if you're a Rush fan or anything. I keep playing that riff all the time. If you watch any of the other videos we do here, that just seems to be the one I keep coming back to. But in any case, let's go through and try a couple more settings. This time, let's just go full throttle. Let's go for the whole enchilada here, and let's just put both of them up all the way up to 10, and let's see what kind of trouble we can get ourselves into. So hopefully at this point you're hearing a really big difference between these two pedals. They really have they don't have a whole lot of similarities once you get past that magic setting on them. As you start really driving the FETs the way that Lounsberry has set them up on these two pedals, you're going to get a much different tone and texture out of it. So I hope you're checking it out and listening to it. But here's the verdict. Okay, so if you've already got an overdrive pedal and you're really happy with it, maybe the Nigel's not the one you want to get. Okay, but if you do have an overdrive pedal and you feel like, wow, I could just be punching my amp just a little bit harder, then the Amp Rescue might be the right one for you. On the same characteristic, on that same, by comparison, let's flip that over. Let's say you've got a really great tube amp. Well, then Amp Rescue, it can do a little bit of extra sweetening. Some people have said that they can replace their chorus pedal with the Amp Rescue pedal, and that that's just one creative way that people have found a way to use it. There's even from what I understood, there was a harmonica player that really dug on the Amp Rescue and is going to use it for harmonica playing, which I have to imagine would sound pretty damn good. But beside the point, if you have, let's say, already a really great tube amp and you don't really need to sweeten it anymore, this might not be the right one. However, if you need a really good overdrive, the Nigel is really where it's at. Now, of course, these are just some very basic and very quick examples, right? But if you listen to the examples we've got here, and you go on to that pedal show, that was another video that really honed in on the Nigel between humbuckers and single coils, and I think sounded really awesome, and they just really dug on the pedal. That might be another example for you to listen to before you make your decision. But in any case, that's the Nigel and the Amp Rescue. So for more information on this pedal and the other pedals that we carry, please visit us at ThePedalGuy.com. Also be sure to follow us on Facebook, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks. Have a great day.